Hi everyone. Yeah, okay, I see many familiar names. Yeah, my name is Alex. I'm the founder and CEO of Anacle Systems. So we do building technologies, especially for the real estate and smart city market. Yeah. So I'm actually calling in from Bali. Yeah, I forgot I was on vacation, but so you see the background is my hotel room. Yeah. So without further ado, let me just start to share. So today, the title is Unlocking the Potential of Predictive Maintenance, Applying AI and IoT in Building Operations. This is actually the second draft of the presentation I prepared. The first draft, right, it was extremely, how do I put it, very engineering based and quite dull. So I hope my second attempt will, if not informative, right, you'll be at least be entertaining. So first, right, the show cannot start with a little bit of introduction of Anacle. So Anacle, we design and develop practical technologies for the built environment. So we specialize in building, we specialize in asset and facilities management. Our markets are mainly the real estate, utilities, and government. So we were founded in 2006. We have regional headquarters in Singapore, Sydney, in Hangzhou in China, and Pune in India. So we opened our Australian office in June last year. So we are setting up Tokyo right now, and hopefully one day we can move our HQ to Dublin. So we have more than 150 full-time staff. So about probably 200, depending on the season of the year. So as you can see from the map, right, our primary focus, right, is the Asia, Western Asia Pacific arc. And most of our customers actually come from Southeast Asia. Yeah. So Anacle, we have a few major anchor technologies that underlie all of our R&D initiatives. So we have a lot of focus. Let me just get my laser pointer out on IoT, especially for the energy management market. We are also have a big practice on mobility, mobile apps and AR, augmented reality, virtual reality apps. So most of you must have heard of Apple's new release of their AR VR goggle. Now, once the price halves, right, then I think it will be a great thing for everyone to have. We are also one of we also have one of Southeast Asia's largest practices in 3D visualization, 3D models, digital twins, and about 6-7 years ago, we started our long and painful journey in artificial intelligence, which is one of the major topics for today. And of course, actually half of our R&D is spent on cybersecurity, right, and cloud and big data. So we have a few key core solutions. So of course, we are the principle of the simplicity software. So simplicity is software that is meant to be simple to use, but actually not so simplistic. So simplicity, we have a specialized solution for real estate management. We handle leases and building operations. We also, for the corporate workspace owners, right, the owner occupiers, we have our digital workspace solutions. So we handle meeting room solutions, your small leasing operations, and your estate management. And of course, one of our smaller segment is our utilities management segment, where we do billing for utilities industry, as well as their supply chain and asset management. And finally, we also have a practice in automated metering infrastructure, where we do ultra smart meters, edge solutions. So our technologies power quite a bit of Singapore's infrastructure. So as of my last survey, right, back in 2019, right, before COVID shuts down the planet, right, Singapore was the smartest city on the planet in 17 out of the 20 global rankings. I'm not sure how COVID affected the rankings, but so far Singapore has still been quite high in the digitalization, quite far along in the digitalization process. So in Singapore, we we empower smart municipal services, smart asset management, space management, energy, water management, smart homes and offices, as well as smart sharing economy. So for just a few examples, right? Few short video clips of what we have done in Singapore, right? So this is something that we've done for the Ministry of Education, which recently we have gotten a renewal of our contract since 2008 to provide smart facilities management software. So this is for all the schools in Singapore. So we are one of the earliest to start large-scale mobility solutions. So, and this one is, Punggol Town, I thought it's Tampines Town. Yeah, this is one of Singapore's latest generation township. Yeah, where we are quite heavily involved in the Punggol Digital District, as well as the 3D modeling of the township. Yeah, we're also quite honored to be involved in Jewel Changi Airport. So visitors to Singapore, please drop by one of the most amazing indoor retail experience in the world. This is Jewel Changi, where we did a lot of the rental, retail, and facilities management automation. Yeah, we are also involved. Okay, this one is actually in quite a number of Singapore Smart Nation initiatives. So this is the government's immersive command center. It was actually demonstrated in the I think the Global Smart City Expo in 2018 in Barcelona. Where you have a ultra smart command center, fully augmented and virtual reality enabled for your training, simulation, and immersive management experience. And we're also involved in the Smart Office Living Laboratory for the Singapore government, where they experimented with the latest hyper-secured IoT, for indoor environment control and management. So this Smart Office Living Laboratory was commissioned in 2018. Well, they have also a robot that's meant to replace the office concierge in the future. The robot will bring you around, lead you to your meeting rooms, and prepare your drinks and beverages for you. Yeah, so next I come to the smart city framework that Anacle always prepares for all of our customers, be it government, real estate, or utilities. So smart city has a lot of meanings, but usually we must start somewhere. So usually the fundamental basis is there are three pillars, the asset, your process, and your workers, which could be your own staff or your service providers. So we turn them smart. How do we turn them smart, right? For smart asset, usually is to digitalize your asset register and space inventory, to make sure that you can have real-time remote monitoring and control, and to optimize your utilities use. For smart process, right, this one accelerated tremendously during the pandemic to be completely paperless and automated scheduling and routing. And for the smart worker is to have full field mobility, enable everyone with mobile apps. The great news is that everybody is familiar, everybody has a smartphone these days. To make sure that your knowledge base is online, so your field workers have access to your central knowledge base at all time. On the flip side, right, now management has full operational transparency. so they know exactly what's going on at all parts of their field operations. So once you have all that going on right, then you are ready to do the next step, engagement of your stakeholders, your residents, your tenants, your shoppers, students, patients, visitors, right? Everybody makes use of the facility. Then with that, you get online and mobile services. With that, you have your smart community. And you let this run, maybe for a couple of years. Then you're ready for the next step. Massive volumes of data is acquired on your assets, processes, workers, and stakeholders. Then you can pump it to the digital twin for visualization, training, and simulation. Or you can go to the big data, your data lake or your data warehouse for analytics and inference. That's where the AI comes in, for decision support and automated decision making. So the whole purpose, right, is to make sure that you fully leverage technology to achieve a connected smart community. And most important, right, if the stakeholders are not happy, right, what's the whole point of having a smart city? Then technology-wise, right, to make sure that you're available and resilient, the technology is available and resilient, cyber secure, and future-proof, something very important, right, open, extensible. So you're not held hostage by particular vendors. And ultimately, right, to build the smartest city of tomorrow, measured by technology, digital awareness, occupant wellness, and ecological sustainability. So this framework is what we do for all of our customers. And it's a good guide on how municipalities can plan their transformation. So on AI, right? So usually there's a few parts, right? The objectives that normally we define. Usually we want to focus on the ability to have inference and insights, ability to identify unexpected relationships, verify suspected relationships, and establish causality. Then we build classifiers to encourage decision support, so you can identify targets, you can forecast trends and predict events, and you can recommend the optimal courses of action. Then finally, right, once you can support decision, then you can have the machine make decisions on your behalf. For example, based on feedback or based on expert advice. So how we do it, there are plenty of tools which I will not go into individual tools, but there are plenty of tools, not just ChatGPT, which I have a short word on that. Yeah, there's plenty of tools available, right, to make AI possible, and we'll make use of all of them in many of our project deliveries. Yeah. So and there's also many possible use of AI. For example, in facility management, to identify defects, to detect faults early, to forecast failures, to help decide whether you should repair, overhaul, or replace, and so on. Plenty of scenarios and use cases. Also, for your leasing and retail management, also plenty of possibilities. And of course, if you have been to Changi Jewel, right, the amazing car park wayfinding system, how to find your car. And in Singapore, heavily practiced, right, how to change the pricing of your car park in reference to your competitors and to the market. Yeah, these are all examples that actually this is just a very small sample of the possibilities, right, or that artificial intelligence, right, can do for building management. So this is Global Smart City Rankings in 2019. The last time that I'm still monitoring, I should get this updated. So Singapore is usually at the top of the rankings. So a lot of the work that we hope that we do here, right, is relevant globally. And actually there was quite a bit of inspiration. The work that's done in Singapore has been inspiring quite a lot of developments in other places, such as in China, right? So on the bottom left, you have Clementi town, one of the earliest smart towns in planned smart towns in Singapore. So the equivalent that's inspired, right? This is the Kuala town in near Hangzhou Airport, next to 5 minutes from Hangzhou Airport, right? Which is conceptually, right, a carbon copy of Clementi, but probably works much better, because built 20 years later. So a lot of the new experimental technologies have inspired lots of developments worldwide, which is a really good thing. But of course, the good news is that Singapore is still constantly innovating. I think the Smart Town 5.0, right, is commissioning soon at Tengah, the first highly green town in Singapore. And Singapore's public housing is already planning for X.0. So we'll do just a quick case study. This is one of the biggest smart estate and building management digitalization projects in Singapore. I believe it's probably the biggest in Southeast Asia. So the project background is that the Public Housing Authority of Singapore, which is the HDB, the Housing Development Board, so they currently develop and manage more than 1 million apartments, 20,000 commercial units and 800,000 car park lots. So these numbers are expected to grow briskly over the next decade. For example, between 24%, 14, 18%, 13%. However, right, as Singapore ages, right, not just a Singapore problem, Hong Kong has the same problem, China has the same problem, Korea and Japan, same problem. The country ages, and transits to become one of the world's most advanced societies, both advanced technologically and advanced, I guess, in age. So the residents' expectations of the services provided by the housing authority will keep increasing. And because there's no more manpower, so staffing is expected not to increase. In fact, it is likely to drop. So that's why the Public Housing Authority has decided to embark on an ambitious digital transformation program to meet the new decade's challenges. So you cannot easily renew infrastructure, so you must make sure that it turns smart. So they started an initiative called the Integrated Estate Management System. So it was one of the core critical platforms in HDB's digital transformation roadmap. So a few key objectives, to integrate all their workflows in a single centralized platform, centralize the entire master data asset register. They have millions, hundreds of millions of assets. Centralize the monitoring and inspection HDB assets. Of course, they drive synergies between HDB and their vendors, to provide better services to their customers. So it's awarded to Anacle and our partner Envision Digital from China in March 2020. And 2020, actually, if you notice this special date, right, is when COVID gets hot. So Singapore was locked down in March 2020. So we had fun over the next 2 years to deliver the entire project online without meeting the customer. So the IEMS is actually Singapore's most ambitious project. It combines the latest in IoT, in AI, in digital twin, as well as mobility technologies to revolutionize HDB's facilities and retail management processes. So there's I think about 30 over 1,000 IoT devices, and there's quite a number, quite a highly capable machine learning service, as well as more than 200 machine learning models and expert systems to drive predictive maintenance. So these are just some statistics. And HDB had a launch in October of 2021, right, where they showcased one of their commercial buildings. This is at North Shore Plaza. This is a particularly interesting one. Early fault detection for escalators with non-intrusive sensors. Of course, also non-intrusive sensors for this giant fan, predicting the failure of giant fans. So we handle more than 200 different classes of equipment. Yeah. So next, I come to the actual topics that I'm supposed to talk about. Yeah, the first one is on IoT. So in this segment, right, some of you in the audience might already know everything that I'm trying to share, and may know even more. So I just beg for your patience, before we go to the AI segment, which I'm sure there'll be something interesting that I can share. So a traditional intelligent building. These are the intelligent buildings since the 80s. Between the 80s and even a large majority of today's buildings. So there are many subsystems that wrap around the buildings. For example, your structured cabling, your fire detection alarm, your lift and escalator management system, your extra low voltage electrical systems, your aircon systems, heating and ventilation aircon systems, your energy management systems. So these days, most buildings would have a large majority of these systems. They are usually called operational technologies, OT, versus information technology, IT. So they're usually generally termed as OT systems. Yeah, so the OT components of traditional intelligence. So you usually have lots of sensors, connected to access control panels, or the PID controllers, or direct digital controllers, and usually are cable up using twisted pair, RS-485 technology before it's being linked to Ethernet and to an integrated building automation system. That's hosted in the fire control command center. This is the traditional model. So there's usually a time-honored architecture. There are lots of sensors, few level controllers, plenty of proprietary protocols and technologies before it goes into workstations and servers in the command center. So time-honored architecture come with time-honored problems. So usually we have lots of proprietary software and protocols. So you often get logged in to the vendors. Then surprisingly easy to get your cables damaged or cut. When one of your tenants do renovation work, or you do an asset enhancement work or repair work, you accidentally cut existing cable. So equipment upgrades not updated in the system. Device address not updated, surprisingly frequent. Manual device management. So install a new sensor or controller, you need to update it somewhere. You fail to update it, nobody knows the existence. It's not like your IP network, right? When your computer, right, when you have a new computer join a network, straight away, the servers, the domain controllers will straight away know that someone new has joined. You don't have to register. But for most building automation systems, you have to manually register. Of course, you have obsolete programming paradigms and very poor documentation. This is actually one of our biggest challenges, right? Doing building technologies in Asia, extremely poor documentation. So as a result, right, the cost of managing a traditional intelligent building is extremely high. The capex is high, the opex is even higher, and the installation timeline is long, usually 6 months to 2 years. By the way, this is a $1 million Singapore note. I've never seen it. Maybe it's not real. So just about 5 years back, right, there was a major revolution. I think it was unnoticed, right, in most of industry. We have a complete rethinking of how we should do things, with speed, flexibility, openness, scalability, and future-proof. Yeah, this is the revolution of IoT, the Internet of Things. So the intelligent building of a century should be smartness, fully enabled by IoT, feasting on big data, AI and driven dynamic adjustments to maximize occupant comfort. Because once you have sensors that are very easy to install, the IoT sensors, you acquire massive amounts of data. What to do with the data? You overwhelm any humans. So then you have AI. Right? So what is IoT? Internet of Things. Right? It's a simple concept. It's just any device, right? Every device can be found on the internet. That's the Internet of Things. Versus a traditional sensors, right? You must register it. IoT just means that all your sensors, right, joins to internet can be found. So the first major revolution is suddenly IoT appearing in the building sector. And then also in 2018, right, the launch of cellular IoT networks, that was NB-IoT and LTE-Cat-M1. This is called LTM. Unfortunately, or fortunately now, it's superseded by 5G technologies. But in 2018, it was a big thing because it reduces the cost of communications, IoT communications, by about 20-30 times. Yeah, so for about like 50 Singapore cents, right? 50 cents, Singapore cents would be about 250 Hong Kong dollars, 250 yuan per month. You can have amazingly available high-speed connectivity for all your sensors. So that was also in 2018. So now communications is cheap, easy, dedicated, and reliable. You have every device that can be found on the internet, and communications are cheap, easy, and dedicated, and reliable. You no longer need to rely on the traditional method of turning your building smart. So this was the promise of the Internet of Things, and the price crash. Of course, when this chart was first planned, right, it did not factor in COVID. So COVID has caused semiconductor prices to go up. But on a grand scale of things, your IoT sensors and controllers have indeed gotten much cheaper. So once you're IoT, right, then you start to be able to acquire data at amazing volume and amazing speed. Your central servers are no longer in your command center, they're on the cloud. Yeah, so to take the effort of processing, right, something called edge computing is invented. Smart local devices, right, your Raspberry Pi, right, they can do local processing, pre-processing before data is transferred to the cloud. And then the invention of edge computers, industrial audio controllers and gateways, as well as IoT sensor ports. So a lot of innovations happened over the last few years to make IoT easy, cheap, reliable, and capable. So there's also a massive proliferation of IoT platforms. These days, right, offering services almost next to nothing, right? Like Microsoft Azure or AWS. There are more than 100 major IoT platforms out there in the market offering. So when you join to the cloud, they charge almost nothing to enable your smart building. So it means that you can move to the next step, AI, which I'll come to shortly. So we have been pushing for IoT-based smart buildings since about 5 years ago, and we have some level of success, a little interrupted by COVID, but it's picking up. So for example, the HDB, right, the Singapore Public Housing, has already started transforming all of their, they have 12,000 buildings, started transform in gradual phases, right, all of them into fully IoT based. So no more traditional building automation systems. So the idea is to have easy to install, extend and modify, no cabling worries, self-managing, secure, auditable, open standards, latest software architectures, continual commissioning means that you can constantly improve easily, no vendor lock-in, and future-proof. So this is this technology trend is promising, right? It's an era where your smart buildings is 70% cheaper and 70% faster to turn your building smart. And we're demonstrated to quite a large scale for many of our large real estate customers. So once you have IoT, what it solves is that you can now monitor many of your assets, many or much of your human traffic, what's going on in your building. You have full knowledge of what's going on with the building. But with the data that comes in, right, how do you make sense of it? So that comes to my next segment, right, a special topic on artificial intelligence. By doing my training in school, right, about close to 30 years ago, right, artificial intelligence was my major focus in college. Of course, the AI of 30 years ago is nothing like the AI of today, especially the AI of the past 10 months. So this is an extremely exciting topic, and I've tried my best to keep it technically accessible, for folks that don't have the engineering grounding. The essence of AI, artificial intelligence. First, if you go to maybe one chatbot, please translate artificial intelligence into Chinese. Then you have 人工智能. For those who are not conversant in Chinese, right? This just means artificial intelligence. You go to a neighboring chatbot, right? That's me asking, please translate into Chinese. Then you have 假聪明, which is fake smartness, right? So both are, I guess, fair translations of artificial intelligence, but they have big implications. AI that can help people and AI that can cause trouble. In fact, we already have some interesting discoveries that ChatGPT can create I come illusions of knowledge. So because they can't tell what is true and what is fact versus what is something that's made up. So sometimes the smart machine chatbots started to make up stories. So that's actually the danger. That's where the 假聪明 component comes about. So the use of AI, right? Certain level of care still needs to be practiced. So a few myths to dispel. So first, right? Machine learning is not synonymous with AI. AI is not all machine learning because there's a lot of confusion over the term machine learning and AI. So the AI, right, artificial intelligence, right, Alan Turing, the famous Alan Turing in 1950, right, one of the fathers of modern computer science, in fact, the father of modern computer science, he set up something called the Turing test, to define when artificial intelligence has arrived. So basically, if you are person A and you spoke to two entities, if you can no longer tell who is who, then AI has arrived. But notice that when he defines AI, he does not define the manner that AI turns intelligent. The AI could be something that has a gigantic series of complex rules, that step-by-step rules that define what it should do. It may be unable to learn, right? But as long as you cannot tell that it's a machine, then it is very good AI, right? So apparently ChatGPT has passed the Turing test. So AI has arrived in the year 2023. The next myth, right? AI is not all machine learning, right? So there are two scenarios that you often encounter, not just in building management, in many of your life situations, but especially applicable for building management. So the first scenario, I have lots of knowledge, but may not have much data. So I have a lot of knowledge, for example, about chiller systems, but I don't have much data on when they fail. Because chillers never fail, right? So the other situation is that I have lots of data, but may not have much knowledge. So for example, a lift on elevator, right? I have plenty of lifts that fail, that break down. I have lots of knowledge about when they occur and what do the sensors readings mean. But I have no knowledge about how a lift is constructed internally. These are actually two very common scenarios. Either I have lots of knowledge, no data, lots of data, no knowledge. So in the situation where I have lots of knowledge but may not have much data, then I will design rule, the general guide to AI. And based on the newly acquired sensor data, my rules, usually called the expert system, will make decisions. So the very first, chess programs to beat humans very well. Anyone remembers Deep Blue, right? Deep Blue is an immense expert system. It doesn't learn from playing a lot. It learns from remembering all the rules, millions of rules, or billions of rules, right? This is an expert system. Very smart. I have lots of knowledge. So when you have lots of knowledge, right, you can design expert system that may not have experienced the real world, but can do extremely well in the real world. Like the IBM Deep Blue chess playing program may not have even played a single game of chess before, but can trash all human players. The other situation, a lot of people more familiar, lots of data but not much knowledge, usually describes a lot of how, I guess, government works, right? I will build a statistical model to infer rules. Actually, not government, economists, right? Government economists, right? Lots of data but not much knowledge. A lot of doctors are like that too, lots of data but not much knowledge. For example, you have stories about how drinking alcohol is good for our heart, drinking coffee is bad for our heart. Then a year later, more data comes, then suddenly everything is reversed. 2 years later, even more data comes, then they flip and flop again. So when you have lots of data and not much knowledge, then you build a statistical model to infer the rules. You don't know how it works, but have enough data to build the rules. So based on newly acquired sensor data, so your rules is actually your machine learning model will make decisions. So the world of AI is generally shared between the expert systems and the machine learning models. Yeah, so don't forget about expert systems because they've been around for much longer than machine learning models. So by the way, when machine learning learns, right, it's during the definition of the statistical model. Yeah. So, and machine learning, right, is actually not magic. Most of you who have learned machine learning, right, sometime in school, although it's not, the terminology is not machine learning. So machine learning is actually a fancy term, very fancy term, for statistical regression, which in itself is a fancy term for finding a mathematical model that best matches reality from the set of data that you have. So this set, usually they call it the training set or learning set. And you find a model, right, then when fed the training set, right, gives the result that has the least error from what you measure in the field. Yeah. So for many people, right, who are economists, right, or investment bankers, right, then this is just regression. Right? So actually, then it turns out machine learning is just regression. So from simple linear models, by the way, the earliest neural network is called the perceptron. So they invented incredibly, right, by my advisor at Stanford University, right? He invented the perceptron, the first neural network model in 1956 or 54. So actually, looking at the kind of time scale, right, technology have massive amount improvement within one lifetime. He's still alive. Yeah. To hideously complex nonlinear models. So this is the deep neural network representing some of the most sophisticated models that we have. Whether it's simple linear model or complex nonlinear model, the whole idea is to find a best fit model for the data. It's still regression. All the sophisticated names and complex methodology is still a mathematical regression. Yeah. So once you realize that machine learning is not magic, AI is not magic, it's just good old regression, then life become much easier. So there's general rules of thumb on developing predictive maintenance AI models. So first, don't waste time on non-mission critical building system equipment because when they fail, right, you don't care. It's not so important. Not expensive. Because it's expensive to install sensors and expensive to collect data. So don't waste time on non-mission critical. Just focus on the mission critical ones. So if you don't have a lot of engineering knowledge, if you have a lot of engineering knowledge, then don't leave things to good fortune. Good fortune means good data set. Build a rules-based expert system. I give the example, right? If you buy IKEA chairs, right? You notice that last time IKEA used to have a mechanical butt, right? They'll have a chair model in the because I'm no longer so young, right? I remember the good old IKEAs, the Swedish furniture company from about 20 years ago, where they demonstrated how they tested their chairs. So they have the Poeng recliner. So they have an artificial mechanical butt that sits on it 100,000 times to find out when it fails, right? So that is a good fortune if it does, the sample they have does fail. But you have good engineering knowledge, right? For example, you have perfect engineering knowledge about the tensile strength of wood, then perhaps, right, you can directly build a rules-based expert system. Use the knowledge to be used. And this is usually preferred for predictive maintenance because expert systems, right, are grounded on first principles of engineering. So we always prefer to do, they are not sexy, but they are usually a lot more reliable. If you have a lot of failure data, but no good engineering knowledge, then pray that your luck prevails, use a machine learning model. Because sometimes the data is not, might not be comprehensive enough, but the more data that you have, the higher the chance that your machine learning model will be superior. This is actually a Kylev's theorem. Even rubbish data is better than no data. And finally, right, if you have moderate knowledge plus moderate amount of failure data, then you can have something called a hybrid model. Part expert system, part machine learning model. That's what ChatGPT, right, generally is. There are massive amounts of data. There's some amount of knowledge, about how humans write and humans organize knowledge. Then you can have a hybrid model. Usually these days are the most superior of machine models. No, not the most superior. Actually, the rules-based systems are still the most superior. Yeah. So you have neither the knowledge nor the data, right? Sometimes for the highly proprietary products, for example, you have a very expensive, like, for example, equipment from Apple, right? You better not predict, better not do predictive maintenance. Follow Apple's guidelines on how to maintain your equipment. So this is generally the rules of thumb of developing predictive maintenance AI models. At Anacle, we have done many, more than a few hundred models for different classes of equipment, and we have tested many. So this is, we learned the hard way. So there are 4 real-world examples of predictive maintenance we have shared with you. These are the ones that we have done a lot of work on development and actually on a few deployment. So the first one, right, is a chiller plant. A chiller plant, right, is very dear to me, right, because it's extremely expensive. A chiller plant is about $1 million, $500,000 to $1 million. It is quite mission critical. Your plant is not working, your building will not be cooled, especially in these days of very hot weather. Unfortunately, right, for chiller plant, because it's not allowed to fail, right, the availability of failure data is very, very low. So you can forget about machine learning on chiller plants. Last time there was an institute, right, in Singapore that tried to do a machine learning on chiller plants. So they sourced for quite a number of buildings. They found that with a data set about 40 chillers, right, over the course of 20 years, there's only one single failure. And chillers have about 25 to 50 failure modes. With one single data point, right, you cannot, you can do, I don't know what you can do, econometrically. But the good news is that the availability of high fidelity engineering models of chiller plants, we know how chiller plants work extremely well. In fact, before manufacturers design new chiller plants, they design it using engineering models, and they can simulate to a high degree of fidelity. Another example of something similar to chiller plants are your aeroplanes. Your fighter jets and your Boeing and Airbus commercial liners, who have extremely good engineering models, but very little failure data. So the relative cost of installing sensors, because it's like, this is a $500,000 monster, right? So any sensors installed on it, even if it's a couple of $1,000s, is relatively low. So this is an example of chiller plant, the first example. The next example is a pump. The pumps are very important. They're everywhere. Your water pumps, your sanitary pumps, all kinds of pumps. Usually, in terms of mission criticality, they are medium. Even when pumps fail, right, it may not have such a big impact. The availability of failure data is very high, easy to collect data, and they are allowed to fail. So it's also easy to collect data. But the other good news is that the high fidelity engineering models also very available. This one, in fact, most people learn it in school. Just a few simple formulas called the affinity laws. But the downside is that the relative cost of installing sensors, because pumps are cheap, so the relative sensors are, the cost is high, so you cannot put too many sensors. The third category of equipment, right, that is illustrative of the dilemma that people face, right, are electrical insulators. So mission critical wise, right, extremely high, very mission critical. Yeah, cannot be allowed to fail. If allowed to fail, it can be catastrophic. Big fires and big segments of electrical equipment down and power supply down. The availability of failure data is actually quite high. Because it's easy to collect when insulators fail, and there's so many electrical installations globally, right? Despite the fact that it's highly mission critical, the occurrences of failure is still very frequent. Unfortunately, right, the very high fidelity engineering model is low. To these days, right, most people don't have a good model of how, for example, partial discharges happen. The gradual breakdown of insulation material. And because of the low cost of the insulator, the relative cost of installing sensors are high. Right, so this is a third example of a very different class of equipment. The final one, right, something that probably dear to many of the real estate companies represented here are your lifts and your elevators. So the mission criticality is quite high. But they fail often enough. So and you have plenty of data. All right. But because the manufacturers keep their knowledge highly secret, they make a lot of money from the servicing of your lifts. Yeah, so they don't publish their engineering models, so you don't have the knowledge, but you have lots of data, and the cost of internal sensors are low. So it immediately, given all these basic characteristics, you know how to approach to build AI models, for predictive maintenance of each of the 4 classes of equipment. So for the chiller plant, right, the obvious thing is doing expert system, because we have excellent models of chiller plants. In fact, we have quite a number of delegates from Hong Kong, right? You might be proud to know that one of the world's best and most definitive models of chiller plants, right, is developed in the Hong Kong University. I can't remember which Hong Kong University, my apologies, right? In the year 2000, as developed by a Hong Kong University, a group of professors from Hong Kong. They built world-defining, right, models of both air-cooled and water-cooled chillers. So with those models, right, you can basically simulate how chillers run. Now that you can simulate how chillers run, right, with your expert model, then all you need to do is just to compare the simulated model with the real-world model. Your real-world equipment. So if your real-world chiller, right, based on the sensor, your flow rate and your temperature and energy consumption, doesn't behave exactly like what your simulation predicts. The simulation, usually they use something called a Kalman filter. Yeah, okay, all this is linear quadratic estimation. It's still a linear model. It predicts, so you predict how your chiller would run. So if your real world chiller start to behave a little bit off from your prediction, it means that your chiller is probably something bad is going to happen to your chiller. Failure mode, one of the 25 failure modes is likely to happen soon. So this established Kalman filter expert system functions extremely well for predictive maintenance. In fact, many of the chiller plant companies, right, have incorporated similar tools in their own software that they sell to you for predicting chiller plant failures. But the good news is that if you don't want to buy from the manufacturer, you can just get it off the shelf from many of the predictive maintenance software companies. For the pump, we have both failure data and we have good engineering models. Whenever there's a preference, whenever I have knowledge, I choose knowledge. So again, expert systems. Just the affinity loss for pump, right? I can predict how a pump should work very well. Again, I compare my model with the real world. If the real world starts to deviate, it means that there's something wrong with the pump. Or something is going to be wrong with the pump soon enough. But now I come to electric insulator. I have no knowledge about how high voltage, right, breaks the material down. So by plenty of data. So I flip to machine learning. One of the most common applications of artificial neural networks, right, for electrical insulation breakdown, right, is actually for partial discharge prediction. So it has been proven quite effective. You just measure the harmonics, right? That's appeared, right? The low, the harmonics up to the 56 harmonic, right? Then you have a good idea of how likely partial discharge will develop and how likely future failure will happen. Then similarly for the elevator, right? Naturally, right? Because I have no knowledge and lots of data, it's machine learning. Yeah. So in fact, Singapore's next wave lift monitoring system by the public housing that monitors 10,000 blocks, 40,000 lifts, and just a rough estimate. So done by Singapore technologists will incorporate plenty of machine learning by artificial neural network to predict lift failure. Whether it levels properly, the door don't close properly, there's a rope failure, there's the lift motor failure. So all four examples, right, are real examples, and I have decided to pick them, right, to illustrate what you should do, for the use of AI, rather than go to details on how each is being done. So when you do have a building and you have decided that it's time to embark on IoT. IoT is a given. It's cheap and easy. You should do it. It's a no-brainer. Don't go to a traditional system. It's a no-brainer. But once you have IoT, right, what do I do next, right? Because unfortunately, right, unlike IoT and other technologies, right, AI is a wild west. It's definitely not blockchain or fintech, which I think is a bull crap. AI is real, but there's also a lot of fluff in the AI industry. So for example, if someone runs to you and tell you that, wow, they have amazing machine learning neural network algorithms for chiller plant prediction, then you can just throw them out. Yeah. Similarly, if they're expert systems for elevators, right, unless it's from the lift company, they have plenty of knowledge. Others, you also share some level of skepticism. But once you have that information, right, it actually works surprisingly well. Yeah. So at this point, right, I have reached the Q&A segment.
Okay, so I guess I will kick off with some questions for Alex first. Can you just give us an idea about you shared quite a bit of projects, but you also shared that you have some customers that are from private companies. So what's the split between government projects and also private company?
Yeah, usually we have a 50%, 50-50 split. Yeah, but I have to be honest, the government in Singapore, right, spends way more, right, on innovative and boundary, breaking technologies.
Yeah, I mean,
as government.
yes, definitely. I mean, government have an agenda to sort of digitally transform the nation. So
Yeah.
in that, right, how receptive it is for the contrary, which are private companies to adopt technologies, because it means that they have to spend money, right? Even though you mentioned that it's IoT now is like 70% cheaper and faster, but what's the driving force for them to adopt?
Yeah, so to be frank, the real estate industry, right, is and the utilities industry, they are tremendously conservative. They for them to digitalize, right, because in real estate, right, you faced with immediate P&L pressures, so you'll not invest for the far away future. So without a government incentive or disincentive or government showing the way, right, usually it's very hard to move the industry along. So what we find in Singapore is that when the government proactively demonstrates that it can be done, by showing it on government buildings, and also incentivizes or disincentivizes. So for example, right now, right, the 3D modeling, right, the building information model is actually regulation that you must do it. So then it will start to move industry along. And only government has some investment, right? into a longer term solutions. So it's happening. Actually, in Singapore, the real estate companies are quite digitally savvy. There's a massive amount of digital transformation and project over the past 3-4 years. A lot of our customers have embarked.
Right. So apart from incentive, I guess there's a lot of conversations out there about ESG for prop tech. So in what way are they driven by, ESG standards to like oblige with them?
ESG standards. So ESG, okay, because I still feel right. The government performs a role in setting the disincentives for not conforming to environment and sustainable efforts. Governance is a separate story lah. Yeah. So it's so far. I'm not sure I get your question right lah. These incentives are actually sometimes somewhat more important than incentives. Both incentives these are extremely important moving the market.
Yeah, okay. We have some questions coming in. One question being, what is the edge compared to your China peers as a SG-based prop tech venture?
Yeah, this one is hard to get the politically correct answer. So I'll do a politically not so correct answer. So in Singapore, we get to trial our solutions on very solid real projects. So so far experience in China is that the Chinese customers, actually the government, right, there will be a general preference from projects that are more visible. So most of prop tech is not visible and is boring under the skin plumbing. So in Singapore, actually, we are quite grateful that a lot of the opportunity we have, right, are projects that are actually not high visibility projects. It's on technology that's boring, but does a major impact. Like for example, you do expert systems, right? I believe many customers in China would not be so interested, although it does real impact. So in terms of age, right, we get the chance, right, to train our technologies on real world projects, which our customers expect real savings and real real outcome. Of course, our Chinese peers, their advantage is that they have a much bigger market to practice. Usually it's market driven. I guess less of the technology age, because the target industries that we have, right, the building industry, it's so behind time, right, compared to the rest of the industries that the telco industry, the phone industry. So it's our age is mainly related to the willingness for the market, right, to adapt and to adopt our solutions. So allowing the solutions to evolve. So I hope I answered.
Okay, I mean, talking about incentivizing clients, another question came in about how you usually incentivize your clients in terms of improving revenues and or significant cost savings with adopting your technology solution.
Yeah, so in the past, right, we actually tried earnings sharing and savings sharing. Frank, then after a while, right, sometimes it's easy to audit. Sometimes the customers may not be so. After they started sharing, they decide maybe it's not a good idea to share. So despite efforts to innovate the business models, right? These days we are still quite traditional business models. Why just a number of software as a service seats that they subscribe to based on number of users or number of square feet they have. So it's not really it's not ideal. We still have not reached the ideal situation. We are still doing a traditional model because unfortunately it seems like it's what works. However, on the flip side, right, the customers are very familiar, right, with the investment on the technologies. Like these days, we don't have to convince them on the ROI. So when we sell our products, we just have to tell them why us and not our competitor, and not why should they buy the technology at all. Often the customer asks why Anacle and not why others. So which means that our target markets are convinced,
Right.
which often is a good thing.
Yeah,
Easier to fight the competitor than fight the budget. Yeah.
yeah, that's surprising to hear. Okay, due to time concern, let's take one last question. Can you partner with targeted manufacturers of the equipments that you can monitor so that they can improve their own sales?
Yes, actually, we do partner with quite a number of manufacturers. We do partner, for example, the manufacturers like Fujitech. So we do partner with them so that a joint program that our customers and their customers, right, can both benefit from the same technology. But it's not as wide scale as I hope to be, because quite a number of manufacturers, they are still uh, uh, very proprietary. There's still a fear that new technology will cannibalize the existing sales.
Okay, so I think our time is up. So thank you, Alex, and thank you everyone for joining us. If anyone feels like you have more questions for Alex, please feel free to drop us an email so we can pass on the question to Alex. So thank you everyone once again, and we hope to see you in next month's Venturous Session.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deb.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.